is Top Accolade Global News Updates. I am Soy Bifa Jakarich. Global petrol demand growth could halve in 2024, squeezing second half refinery margins, analysts said, driven by shifts of electric cars in China and the United States and a return to normal consumption after last year's bounce following COVID-19. In the lowest growth since 2020, demand is likely to rise 340,000 barrels per day, PBD, to stand at 76.5 million PBD this year, says consultancy Wood Mackenzie, down from growth of 700,000 PBD last year, as China nears the point of transport fuel demand and the US has surpassed it. Consultancy Rystad Energy pegs global gasoline demand at about 26 million barrels per day in 2024, up about 300,000 barrels per day from growth of about 700,000 barrels per day in 2023, followed by the consumption boom after the pandemic, said analyst Mukesh Sadev. China, once the world's driver of gasoline demand, is expected to account for more than half of all electric vehicle sales this year, the International Energy Agency has said. Gasoline consumption by the world's largest crude importer is set to grow by about 1.3% or about 2 million tons to 165.1 million metric tons. That is 3.8 million barrels per day this year, forecast by a research arm of China National Petroleum Co. CNPC show. The research arm of China's biggest refiner, Sinopec, expects gasoline demand to rise by 1.7% or about 3 million tons to stand at 182 million tons this year. As fallen prices spur demand, the share of electric cars sold this year could reach 45% in China, about 25% in Europe, and more than 11% in the United States, the IEA estimates. By comparison, booming car sales, along with high economic growth and low electric vehicle penetration, are driving gasoline demand in India and Indonesia. Australia's Qantas Airways agreed to pay 120 million Australian dollars, that is $79 million, to settle a regulator lawsuit over the sale of thousands of tickets on already cancelled flights in an attempt to end a reputational crisis that has engulfed the airline. The company will split 20 million Australian dollars between more than 86,000 customers who booked tickets on the so-called ghost flights and pay a 100 million Australian dollars fine instead of defending the lawsuits that it had previously vowed to fight. Qantas and the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission (ACCC) said on Monday. The fine is the biggest ever for an Australian airline and among the largest globally in the sector, although some Australian banks and casino operators have faced higher penalties for breaches of the law. The settlement means we can compensate affected customers much sooner than if the case had continued in the federal courts, added Hodgson, who started her role in September, noting the court still must sign off on the settlement. If the court approves, the settlement will resolve a dispute that had featured prominently at a time when Qantas' brand value tanked in customers' surveys amid a spike in complaints about cancellations after the ACCC filed its lawsuit last August. Hudson's long-serving predecessors, Alan Jones, brought forward his retirement. The payout, however, would pale against the 1.47 billion Australian dollars net profits that analysts on average forecast Qantas to report in the year to end June, according to LSEG data. People who bought tickets on non-existent domestic flights would get 225 Australian dollars, and people with international fares would get 450 Australian dollars on top of a refund, the airline and regulator said. Qantas shares were flat in late trading, against 0.6% gain in the broader Australian markets. Three of the biggest global health funders have joined forces for the first time in a $300 million partnership aimed at tackling the linked impact of climate change, malnutrition, and infectious disease and antimicrobial resistance. The Novo Nordisk Foundation, Wellcome, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation announced the research partnership focused particularly on finding affordable solutions for people in low and middle income countries in Denmark on Monday. Each will put $100 $100 million into the 3-year initiative, a key aimed to break down barriers between often isolated areas of research, said Mads Grogsgaard Tamsman, Chief Executive Officer of the Novo Nordisk Foundation. For example, COVID-19 showed that obesity can be a risk factor for the severity of some infectious diseases, while extreme weather events linked to climate change can cause food insecurity, leaving undernourished children even more vulnerable to killer diseases such as measles and cholera. The partners said advances in nutritional science and understanding the gut microbiome opened the door to understanding more about the impact over and undernutrition have on all aspects of health and development. The Novo Nordisk Foundation has a controlling interest in the drug maker Novo Nordisk, whose blockbuster weight loss drug Wegovy has brought in billions for the foundation since its launch in 2021. The partners said the initiative was important given fostering global attention to health post-pandemic. Welcome's Chief Executive John Ann Rottingen also said it was about tackling market failures and signaling a global commitment to equitable access to medical advances. The funding will also include support for researchers based in low and middle income countries, and the partners said they are on the lookout for private, philanthropic and public partners. The death toll from heavy rains that have caused flooding in Brazil's southern state of Rio Grande do Sul has risen to at least 78, local authorities said on Sunday, with more than 115,000 people displaced. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva arrived in Rio Grande do Sul on Sunday morning with most members of his cabinet to discuss rescue and reconstruction efforts with local authorities. Bureaucracy will not stand in our way, stopping us from recovering the state's greatness, Lula said at a press conference. It is a war scenario and will need post-war measures, State Governor Eduardo Leite added. Volunteers using boats, jet skis, and even swimming have assisted in ongoing rescue efforts in the state's capital, Porto Alegre. Fabiano Sardaha said he and 3 friends have used jet ski to save about 50 people from flood water since Friday in islands that are part of the city. The death toll could still substantially increase as 105 people were reported missing on Sunday, up from about 70 the prior day, according to the state civil defense authority. It also said it was investigating whether another 4 deaths were related to the storms. Flooding from storms in the past few days has affected more than 2/3 of the nearly 500 cities in the state, which borders Uruguay and Argentina, leaving 115 people displaced, according to authorities. Floods have destroyed roads and bridges in several cities. The rains also triggered landslide and the partial collapse of a dam at a small hydroelectric power plant. More than 400,000 people were without power on Sunday evening, while nearly a third of the state's population was without water, authorities said. Republican president candidate Donald Trump accused Democratic rival President Joe Biden of running a Gestapo administration in a private address to donors, in which he also attacked prosecutors involved in his criminal indictment, according to a recording heard by U.S. media outlets. Trump, whose own rhetoric has drawn accusations of fascist tendencies from civil rights groups and other critics, made the comparison with the Nazi police in Germany's World War II regime at a donor retreat Saturday night at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida. The comment came after Trump reprised his complaints that the multiple indictments against him were political motivated. He had just concluded 11 days of a New York hush money trial in which he is charged with falsifying business records to cover up a $130,000 payment made to a porn star. These people are running a Gestapo's administration, Trump said, according to an audio recording heard by the New York Times and the Washington Post, and it's the only thing they have, and it's the only way they are going to win, in their opinion, and it's actually killing them, but it doesn't bother me. The Trump campaign did not respond to a request for comment on the reported remarks. In a statement, White House spokesperson Andrew Bates sought to contrast Biden's conduct in office with Trump's latest remark, accusing the former president of echoing fascist rhetoric, launching with neo-Nazis, and defining debunked conspiracy theories that have cost both police officers their lives. President Biden is bringing the American people together around our shared democratic values and the rules of law, an approach that has delivered the biggest violent crime reduction in 50 years, said Bates. Trump, who held office from 2017 to 2021, faces an array of legal troubles in criminal and civil cases while he seeks to regain the presidency in the November 5th election. He denies wrongdoing in all the cases. Trump has made a series of inflammatory and racist statements on the campaign trail, using violent imagery to lambast immigrants and opponents. He has warned of possible violence if he doesn't win the 2024 election and has compared immigrants to animals. In November, Biden attacked Trump for using the word vermin to refer to his political enemies, saying it echoed the language of Nazi Germany. Also last year, Trump said immigrants who entered the country illegally were poisoning the blood of our country. Some historians say such comments mirror that of autocrats who have sought to dehumanize their foes. The Trump campaign has previously rejected comparison to Nazis, Adolf Hitler, and Italy's Benito Mussolini. That is the size of top accolade global news updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy Monday.